Well, everybody, all of the Season 3 episodes have been uploaded from the Teletubbies US series, and you know what that means? That's right, it's time for the US Season 3 recap of Teletubbies. So, I'm redoing this because I didn't like the way the first take took when I did it on Google Slides, even though I did it, because, some of the episodes were, skipped on some of the slides where I typed in some of the episodes, one of them was skipped, so yeah. So I'm gonna do that, so instead I'm just gonna do it this way, so yeah. Anyway. So this season has 25 episodes, and much like the first season, I'm going to be only talking about the PBS versions. With maybe one exception, I might talk about a pledge drive airing of that, because I do remember seeing a pledge drive airing, but I'll get to that when I get to that episode. So, and unlike in the first season, most of these episodes kept the regular UK segments, not just in addition to their TV events. So without further ado, let's begin, shall we? All right. First up we have is flamenco dancing. It has the stretching dance. U.S. descriptions describe this dance called the big dance because it's like well over 5 minutes long, but it's called but we call it the extended version of the stretching dance because that's what it's originally called. So yeah. And the reason why it has this dance is because flamenco dancers stretch their arms up like when they dance. A lot of dancers I guess that's, and plus when you exercise, you warm up stretching as well. And it's the same version for Making Bread because it has the same, where it has the same opening shots and music, but instead of the Magic Event tune, the windmill makes the whooshing sound, and the Teletubbies saying "uh-oh" is from the opening scene of the next episode we're going to get to, so yeah. Along with its TV event music, and so yeah. Tinky Winky shows for TV event. Now this is the first US episode where the later audio of Tinky Winky being chosen was used. In the U.S. series, that is. And it's the same two girls from the Flamenco Guitars TV, but it still has Tito playing the guitar while the girls dance. And it has a short... the TV event is shortened, although we still see the same shot of Tito saying goodbye from the Guitars TV event. And then after that, it still has the main scene where the Teletubbies were washing their feet with the Tubby Sponges. I do remember that main scene but where the Teletubbies were washing their feet. But I kind of remember having a Magic Event, but I think I got confused with the US version of Wash the Car, which obviously that had a Magic Event after that. If you want to know more about that, watch my Season 1 recap where I talk about that, so yeah. Anyway, it uses the same dialogue of Rough Saxons in this segment from Altogether Teletubbies, so yeah. The same Boo Shutter Missing Teletubbies kept from the UK version, so Poe's the Missing Teletubby and Tinky Winky's the Boo Shutter. Now we get to Pebbles. It still has the opening scene where the Teletubbies were walking around a tree. Poe gets chosen for the TV event. It's about where these kids make smiley faces out of pebbles, which is a type of rock on a beach. And then, let me just make sure that I got this correct. Hang on. Let me just make sure that I said that Pebbles was a rock, as a type of rock. Hang on. Yeah, Pebbles Rock, I thought so. Anyway, after that, it still has the main scene where the Tubby Toast machine makes a happy happy Tubby Toast pattern on the table. It still has the same dialogue of Rolf Saxons from Look. But when the Teletubbies give each other a big hug at the end of the scene, we do hear their jingling noises, unlike in the UK version where they were silent. And the reason why this episode was talked about constantly when it got uploaded back in 2019 is because this is the very first episode we found that has the extended version of the Calypso dance, which replaces the short version of the stretching dance in here, so yeah. It's the same version from the Sunday special version of Jigsaw Rabbit, because it has the same clip of the sun baby smiling at the end, but there's no opening shots this time. And the voice trumpet was halfway up. This happens in the next episode as well, just a spoiler alert. Loudest Missing Teletubby and Dipsy's the Boo Shutter. Next up is Funny Walks. This episode I may have seen, but I don't know, though. Anyway, it still has the opening scene and / main scene where Poe does a funny walk, does a funny walk in the house, and the other Teletubbies wonder what she's doing, and then they join her, and then they join in. Tinky Winky shows for TV, and it's about these kids where they do funny walks in a city. But before it has the next scene, it has the twisty dance, the regular version. It's the same version from. It starts the same as the UK version of Little Baby, where it has the same opening shot, but it ends the same way as My Dad's a Tram Driver, where after it shows the close-up of Tinky Winky, it just cuts straight to the Baby Son clip, that same Baby Son clip, except here, she does her crescendo scream instead of the clip that was used in the audio that was used in My Dad's a Tram Driver. And the reason why it has this dance is because sometimes our legs and feet turn and twist in when we walk. So yeah. And then it still has the original, that next scene where the Teletubbies do their own funny walks, and the windmill does stop spinning, but the Teletubbies say, before the Teletubbies say "uh-oh," but after that, the audio of the Teletubbies saying "uh-oh" is from the opening scene from Pebbles, So yeah. I honestly think this episode should have had the animal parade at the end, because that actually would have matched the length if it was the version from the UK version of Making Flowers and the US version of Carnival. So yeah, I actually measured that, like, because that would make sense, because the animals walk, and that would have made sense if it happened in this scene instead of the twisty dance. So yeah, I think that happened in the Pledge Drive variant, but anyway. And the voice tremor was halfway up as well, like I said earlier. Same Boo Shutter missing Teletubbies kept from the UK version, so Dipsy's the missing Teletubby and Lala was the Boo Shutter. Oh god, now we get to this one. As Scooby-Doo 1998 says for this episode, the worst episode of Teletubbies ever made in both the UK and the US. And I could not agree with you more on that, Scooby-Doo 1998, if you're watching this. Boom Boom Dance. Oh, God. This episode was actually uploaded back in January 2020, which is a surprise, because, like, we never thought this episode was going to get uploaded, because you all know that this episode was banned in the US for a very obvious reason. I'm going to talk about this episode very fast, because I don't feel like talking about it. Anyway, it has a scene from Piglets where the Teletubbies were laughing about the sounds their bottom makes when they sit down. And when the windmill spins, it makes a magic event too, because Piglets had the animal parade after that, but, so yeah. Dipsy gets shows for TV event, and then it has the Boom Boom Dance segment. Not going to say a word about it, not even one. Although I will say this, the TV event was filmed at Birmingham Settlement Nursery, which is now called Birmingham Settlement. And at the end of the main scene, it shows a closing shot, the same one from Flamenco dancing. Unlike in the UK version, where it just cuts straight to Tubby bye-bye after the Teletubbies give each other a big hug. And it still has that same clip of Baby Son screaming excitement at the end, and the set Boo Shutter, which is Tinky Winky, which also happened in the UK. And Lala, also much like in the UK, was the missing Teletubby. So like I said, Lala's missing Teletubby and Tinky Winky's the Boo Shutter. Now we get to Dirty Dog. It still has the opening scene where the Tubby Toast machine makes an extra piece of Tubby Toast, but for the noo-noo. I don't know why the Teletubbies called him Naughty Noo-noo, but that didn't make any sense. This was not, like, the noo-noo having a piece with the same, like just like the other Teletubbies did. That's not calling him naughty at all. That's no reason to call him naughty. Anyway, Lala gets shows for TV event. Now this TV event features the same kids and the dog from the Beach TV event, which is an episode we'll get to later in the season. Now, in the UK, they showed the Beach before Dirty Dog, but here they showed this episode first in the US before Beach for some reason. And spoiler alert, both US episodes of these has a magic event in the middle, right after the TV event. So this episode has the Magic House. It's the same version from Wake Up, where it starts that way, where the Teletubbies, where the windmill immediately spins with the Magic Event tune after the Baby Son giggles, and the Teletubbies were silent when they arrived, and the puppet sings out of the top right window version. But it has the clip of the Baby Son giggling silently after that, and then it has the scene from Naughty, and then it has another controversial scene, this one from Naughty Soap, where the noo-noo washes Po with the Tubby Sponge. Now, this segment was originally uploaded back in 2009. It's still up there if you want to see it. I forget I'll put it in the description on if you want to see it. So, yeah. But it starts with the Right Path 1 opening shot instead of Home Hill 3. And then the camera just cuts Tubby bye-bye like how Naughty Soap ended. So, yeah. With the voice tremor being halfway up. Same Boo Shutter missing Teletubbies kept from the UK version. Post missing Teletubby Tinky Winky's the Boo Shutter. Now we get to something good. Painting with hands and feet. It has a scene from Leaves where the Teletubbies were making noisy footsteps in the house, and it has the Home Hill 3 opening shot. Poe gets shows for a TV event. It's where these kids paint with their hands and feet. This TV event has a child narrator, the same one from Funny Day. The Baby Son does do her crescendo scream, much like what originally happened in the UK version of Painting with Hands and Feet. And then it has the scene from Trickle Painting where Poe floods the house accidentally with Tubby Custard. But it starts with the Home Hill 4 opening shot, with the regular opening music, unlike in Trickle Painting where it had no opening shot at all. And here, there's also additional music heard during the segment, where the noo-noo is shown at the start of the segment, unlike in the UK version where no music was heard at all. And then it has the falling down dance at the end, the same version from Finding Chocolate Eggs, because it has the same Baby Son clip of the Sun Baby giggling silently at the end, but there's no opening shots. Dipsy's both the missing Teletubby and Boo Shutter. Alright, now we get to Drumming with Norris. This episode I do remember seeing, and this is actually one of my favorite episodes of the season. So it still has the opening scene where the Teletubbies dance around some trees, which also happen to dance with the Teletubbies, but the dialogue that's heard here is from the UK version of Drumming with Norse. So Lala shows for TV event. It's about about these kids playing different kinds of drums with a guy named Norris. It's a really cool TV event. It's actually one of my favorite ones this season. And then it still has the main scene where Tiki Winky dances on top of the house. It has different dialogue from Ralph Saxon, unlike in Bedtime Stories and Lullabies. And then instead of the... that's also a really cool segment. I kind of remember that main scene. But instead of the three shifts, which happened in the UK version, it has the animal parade. It has the elephant trumpet noise being heard. And it's the same version from Going for a Walk, where it has the same clip of Baby Son giggling silently. The only difference, though, is the windmill... Yeah, the Magic Man tune is plays normally, instead of... unlike in Going for a Walk, where it was slowed down. So yeah, and the reason why it has this magic event is because it has drums, because drums are instruments that are played in parades. And then after that, it has the stamping and stepping dance, the extended version at the end. It's the same version from Piglets, and where the Teletubbies giggle throughout the dance. And the reason why I remember seeing this episode is because after the stamping and stepping dance, the Baby Son does her crescendo scream, like how rumors were mentioning. And the reason why it has this dance is because the Teletubbies march to the beat of a drum heard during the music. So yeah. And here's another fun fact. The stamping and stepping dance was actually the very first dance the Teletubbies ever did. I thought you guys never knew that. Anyway, Lala's both the missing Teletubby and the Boo Shutter. And I guess Lala's the winner of this episode. Like, she's the missing Teletubby, the chosen one, and the Boo Shutter. Anyway, I actually kind of remember Lala was the Boo Shutter in this episode. I thought it was Tiki Winky, but I think I got that confused with another episode, which we'll get to a little bit later in this season. Anyway, now we get to statues. It has a scene from Naughty Sock Returns, which also happened in Dandelion Clocks, where Tiki Winky jumps on a hill before he calls out the other Teletubbies, and it brings them on top of the hill. But the version that's on this one is from Naughty Sock Returns, where it has that same opening shot, because of the same opening shots. Lala gets shows for TV again, which has a child narrator. And this time, it's about these kids looking at some statues in the city. Now, here's some fun fact about the statues. Those statues were actually shown in an episode of Brum, which is a show that Ragdoll did before they did shows like Tots TV. And unfortunately, those statues that were shown in the TV event were destroyed by a fire on April 10th, 2003. And then after the TV event, it still has it has the main scene being moved to after the TV event instead of before it, where the Teletubbies hide from Dipsy. And it has the Home Hill 5 alternate version 1 closing shot, along with this Baby Son screaming excitement at the end. And it still has the tiptoe dance, but this time it's the extended version instead of the short version. And the reason why it has this dance is because the Teletubbies pose at the end of the dance like statues. And it's the same version from the UK version of Carnival, where it has the same clip of the Baby Son screaming in excitement at the end. But there's added audio of the Teletubbies giggling throughout the dance from the US version of Ice Skating, and the audio of the Teletubbies cheering the first time is different compared to Carnival, compared to the UK version of Carnival, and the Sun Baby is heard giggling silently after the Teletubbies post the first time. So yeah. And like I said, the audio of the Teletubbies cheering when they posed the last time is different, unlike in the UK version of Carnival. Tiki Winky's missing Teletubby and Pose the Boo Shutter. Next up is Colors Orange. It still has the opening scene where Lala listens to a voice trumpet saying orange, but it has a female voice trumpet instead of a male one. Pogus shows for TV, and then it still has the main scene where the Teletubbies show what color their favorite things are. Of course, Lala playing with her orange ball. Now, what's weird is when Lala plays with her orange ball, after Lala is done playing with orange ball, you could briefly hear the windmill stopping, because that originally happened in the UK version, as well as the Pledge Drive variant, which I do remember seeing. But here, it cuts to the Baby Son giggling, and then they do the extended version of the Round and Round dance. And once again, the same version from Throwing, and the US and the Sunday Special version Eats to Close, where it has Teletubbies giggling throughout the dance, and the same for the Baby Son shrieking at the end. It's the same. And the reason why it has that dance is because Lala's ball is round. So yeah, like her orange ball is round. Poe's missing Teletubby and Tiki Winky's the Boo Shutter, which also happened in the Sunday Special version of Colors Orange, by the way. I thought I'd mention that. Now we get to Becky and Jed Find Eggs. Now, this was a very common episode to be found. So, yeah. Anyway, so it has this is actually which is actually disappointing because this is a very boring episode. Anyway, it has a scene from frogs where Poe is making adjustments on the control panel, and that's because two of the noises heard from the panel are the sounds of a cow and sheep, which are animals found on a farm. Taking Weekend shows for TV where these kids named Becky and Jed go look for eggs on a farm, and then they have breakfast. They have soft-boiled eggs for breakfast with toast sticks. And then after that, it has a very long and boring scene from Washing the Elephant, where Dipsy and Lala step in Tubby Custard by accident, and yeah, they didn't have time for a dance or a magic bit at all. So the episode just goes Tubby bye-bye after that. But the reason why it has this segment is because eggs are used to make egg custard. Dipsy's both the missing Teletubby and Boo Shouter. Now we get to Dad's portrait. This is an interesting one. It still has the opening scene where the Teletubbies hide out of view from the noo-noo. But it has the Home Hill 4 opening shot instead of Home Hill 3. Dipsy gets shows for TV where a girl paints a picture of her father. And then it still has the Looby Loo scene, but it has a female voice trumpet instead of a male British one. And then after that, the Teletubbies, instead of the windmill stopping, the Teletubbies see the windmill spinning for the Magic Event tune, the same one which was heard from Sing a Song of Sixpence. That's what this version of the first part of Magic Event tune is from, along with the Teletubbies jingling noises being heard. But the camera cuts to the zooming in of the windmill before Poe can finish running off. Anyway, it's the dancing bear dancing once. By the way, the main segment is actually from the Sunday Special version, which had the 3 ships in that. But here, it has the dancing bear dancing once. It's the same version from Arthur Robot's story, kind of, where it has the same clip of baby son giggling when they arrive to their destination. But the windmill does not stop spinning. Instead, the baby son does her shrieks after that. So, yeah. The Tubby Bye-Bye is the same version from Naughty Snake, where that has that clip along with the said Boo Shouter, which was Lala. So she's the Boo Shouter and Tinky Winky's missing Teletubby, but the voice trumpet just rises normally. So, yeah. Gingerbread Boy. This is an interesting one. It has a scene. It still has the opening scene where Teletubbies were being very quiet. It still has that original windmill clip. The CGI windmill clip, by the way, I was talking about. Tinky Winky shows for TV. Now, here's where things get interesting. So, the first time the TV plays, it has a child narrator, the same one from Nursery Rhymes. And the TV event is shortened. But when it plays the second time, it has the boy from the TV event narrating it, and the TV event plays in its entirety. That's very strange, so yeah. After that, it still has the main scene where the Teletubbies listen to a voice trumpet pretending to be the Gingerbread Men, and then it has the running away dance, the extended version, which makes sense, because the Gingerbread Boy runs away, tries to run away in the story, so yeah. It's the same version from the UK version of Numbers 1, where it has the same clip of Baby Son giggling after that. Post both the missing Teletubby and the Boo Shouter. Numbers 8. This one. Before this episode was uploaded, a clip of the episode was found in 2007 where two guys were watching the end of the main scene and the start of the Magic Event. Which I'll get to that in a moment. It still has the opening scene where the Teletubbies make a figure 8. Post still gets picked for TV, and it still has the 8 clouds scene. But instead of them watching the Animal Parade, they go watch the Magic House, the top left window version. This is the only U.S. episode that's not a pledge drive or rerun or Sprout airing, or Sprout second version airing, that has the top left window of the Magic House. It's the same version from Sing a Song Sixpence, where it has the same audio of the sun baby giggling when they arrive. But the windmill does not stop spinning after this, which also actually happened in the Sunday Special version of football, where that had the baby son giggling, and they do the shortened version of the running away dance. But here, in the US version, the baby son does her crescendo scream, and oh, by the way, the reason why it has the Magic House is because when the puppet, actually 2 things. First of all, the puppet presses the light switch 2 times each, which makes a total of 8, because there's 4 windows, because 4 times 2 is 8. And also, he sings do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. That's 8 notes. So, yeah. And then after that, they do the shortened version of the walking dance. Same version from Shadows, the UK version, where the camera cuts to Tubby Bye-Bye after that. So, yeah. But the Teletubbies are heard giggling throughout the dance. So, Tinky Winky's missing Teletubby and Poe is the Boo Shouter. 2 episodes in a row where... 2 times in a row where Poe is the Boo Shouter. So, yeah. Now I get to hair braiding. It still has the opening scene where Lala and Poe give each other a big hug. And Lala herself gets picked for the TV event. Oh, by the way, that opening scene was also shown in Big Hug. And the TV event's about this girl having her hair braided by her mother. And then after that, before the main scene, it has the extended version of the up and down dance, where it has the same version of painting Easter eggs, where it has the same opening shot, but it does have a closing. It has a closing shot, and then shows the baby son screaming in excitement after that. But we do hear the audio of the Teletubbies cheering at the end of the dance when the closing shot and baby son clip is shown. And then after that, it still has the main scene where Dipsy sings a lullaby to help Tinky Winky go to sleep. And it has the Right Path 2 opening shot, though, instead of Home Hill 3. Dipsy's both the missing Teletubby and Boo Shouter. Now we get to the beach. It still has the opening scene where the Teletubbies listen to a voice trumpet making an ocean of noises. Tinky Winky shows for TV event where these same kids and the dog from the Dirty Dog TV event were playing with a beach ball on the beach, and of course the dog has to go find the ball. The baby son giggle is heard differently in this compared to the UK version. And then after that, it has the three ships, which starts with the opening shot from the Sunday special version of Emily and Jester, and which that happened before the animal parade. And then where it has shows a silent shot of the rabbits in the field. It also happened in Dancing with the Teletubbies from after the Dancing Bear, but here, the first part of Magic Man tune is heard, and then the second part of the tune comes in and plays once the camera starts zooming into the windmill. And the three ships here is the same version from it's kind of the same version from Sarah Fraser the Ducks, where it has the second part of Magic Man tune heard after the camera fully zooms in. But it has audio of the Sun Baby giggling where the Teletubbies arrive to the destination. And the ending of this, the three ships, is from the UK version of Bubbles, where it has the clip of the baby son doing her crescendo scream at the end. And then after that, it still has the main scene where Dipsy's hat gets blown around Teletubby Land by a breeze. And the reason is because the reason why it has three ships is because ships are vehicles that move in water, and the beach is usually on the water. And then it still has the main scene where Dipsy's hat gets blown around Teletubby Land by a breeze, like I said. And then it still and the reason is because sometimes you wear a hat to the beach to block out the sun, and the beaches can be very windy. So yeah. This segment actually got removed from the US version of Here Come the Teletubbies. I think it might have been because of the part where Tinky Winky kisses Lala. So yeah. And it still has the splash at the end, but the Teletubbies are heard giggling. But much like in the US version of Playing in the Rain, the Teletubbies are heard giggling during the dance and cheering at the end as well, unlike in the UK version where they were silent. But the dance still keeps the baby son shrieking at the end. So yeah. Now, I'll go back to Dad's portrait real quick. The Boo Shouter and Missing Teletubby and that were swapped around. Same thing here in Beach, because originally in the UK version of Beach, Lala was Missing Teletubby and Poe was the Boo Shouter, and here they swapped it around. Poe was the Missing Teletubby and Lala was the Boo Shouter. That's crazy. That also happened in the US version of Orange Picking, by the way, in Season 1. Now we get to Squeezy Ping. Now, this episode I do remember seeing. It still has the main scene, the opening scene where Poe tries to make a bowl of tubby custard, which I kind of remember that opening scene. But she gets interrupted by the windmill spinning, and then Tinky Winky shows for T-Vent, where these kids make pictures by squeezing bottles of paint onto paper. But unlike in the UK version, they fixed the error where Tinky Winky's TV antenna noise was not heard, and here in the version it is heard. And then it still has the main scene where Dipsy spills his bowl of tubby custard on the floor, and then with the noo-noo cleaning it up after that. Same dialogue of Ralph Saxon's from Naughty Noo-Noo, and then it has the extended version of the Stamping and Stepping dance. Once again, same version for Piglets, because it has the same audio of the Teletubbies giggling throughout the dance, but the baby son shrieks unlike in Piglets, where she giggles silently. Lala's Missing Teletubby and Tinky Winky's the Boo Shouter, which is why I do remember seeing this episode, because I do remember seeing an episode where Tinky Winky was Boo Shouter, an episode that ended after the Stamping and Stepping dance. So yeah. Harp. This is actually a bit disappointing, I gotta be honest with you. It still has the opening scene where Tinky Winky makes adjustments on the control panel by pulling levers. And Tinky Winky, again, gets picked for TV event. He's chosen for the next TV event as well, in the next episode as well, just to give you a heads up. Where this girl plays a harp, and then it still has the main scene where Tinky Winky and Poe play Ba Ba Black Sheep on the harp, but it has different dialogue from Ralph Saxon, unlike in Silly Songs and Funny Dances. Now, a lot of us thought it would have the magic tree, which would make sense because there was harp noise heard in the magic tree. But, I'm sorry, I made a mistake. Tinky Winky was chosen for the beach, which was 2 episodes ago, and then he was chosen for the previous episode, Squeezy Ping, and he's chosen for this one as well for harp. So yeah, this episode, We thought it was gonna have the magic tree at the end, which would fit perfectly because a harp is heard during that magic event. But nope, it has the happy dance. It's the same version from Nursery Rhymes because it has the same clip of Baby Son screaming excitement. But jingling noises are heard when the Teletubbies give each other a big hug at the end of the dance. So yeah. And the voice treble rising is a bit delayed. By the way. Dipsy's the missing Teletubby and Poe's the boo shouter. Brennan's Moonwalk. Now this episode I think I've seen, but I think I might have been thinking about a season 4 episode, another episode which I'll talk about when I do season 4. It still has the opening scene where the noo-noo tidies up Tinky Winky's bag, but it has the Home Hill 4 shot instead of Home Hill 1. Lila gets chosen for TV event. It's where this boy named Brennan pretends to be an astronaut going on the moon. Now I believe Brennan had uploaded this TV event on his YouTube channel. So yeah. And then after that, it still has the main scene where Teletubbies fetch their favorite things before they go play, but it has the opening shots from Ladybirds, the opening scene from that. And but instead of the windmill stopping, they see the windmill spinning with a magic event tune being heard, and then they go watch the dancing bear dancing twice because the bear's carousel does make galactic beeping sounds like a spaceship does. It's kind of the same version from the UK version of Jumping, where it has the same clip of Baby Son giggling slightly at the end, but you could briefly hear the windmill stopping because this episode, because this would be taken from My Pretend Friend, a later UK episode, where that had the windmill stopping after that, and coincidentally, the Sunday special version of this also had the dancing bear, but in that it danced once, while here it danced twice. So yeah, Tinky Winky's missing Teletubby and Poe's the boo shouter again 2 times in a row where Poe's the boo shouter. Now we get to Handy Hands. It still has the opening scene where the Teletubbies creep behind the control panel, which is weird because the US version of Twirlers had that happening as well. Tinky Winky shows for TV event. It's about these. This is the other Alex Pascal TV event that got a US version. And then it still and here he sings a song called Handy Hands with some kids. And after that, it still has the main scene where the mittens appear, but it has different dialogue from Rolf Saxon, unlike its silly songs and funny dances. The Baby Son shrieks at the end, and then after that they do the shortened version of the Dizzy dance, but it starts with no opening shots. And the reason is because the Teletubbies hold hands during the dance, and it's the same version from Fruit Tasting where it uses the same windmill whooshing sound at the audio of the Teletubbies sing "Uh-oh" from the UK version of Pebbles at the end. It's the Sunday special version of Fruit Tasting. So yeah. But much like in Fruit Tasting, the windmill stops after they say "uh-oh" run off. The windmill stops spinning, and there's no birds chirping that are heard. We don't hear the birds chirping until the camera fades to tell me bye-bye, which was halfway up, where the voice treble was halfway up somewhat. So yeah. The same boo shouter missing Teletubby is kept from the UK version. So Post missing Teletubby and Dipsy's the boo shouter. Next up is Colors Pink. It still has the opening scene where Teletubbies march up and down a hill, which also happened to Dance with Teletubbies, but it's the version from the UK version of here, much like in Drumming with Norris. Lala gets shows for TV event, and then it still has the main scene where Tinky Winky doesn't remember how to make Tubby Custard, and obviously obviously Tubby Custard is pink, which is why they kept this scene. But 3 differences were heard. First of all, when Poe lowers the Tubby Custard tap, she just says Tubby Custard instead of Tubby Custard tap. And then when Tinky Winky tries to find the button for the Tubby Custard tap, the second time, instead of saying Tubby Custard tap, he says, the Tubby Custard. I can't do a Tinky Winky sound, sorry. Anyway, when Tinky Winky tries to find the button for the Tubby Custard the third time, he says, uh-oh, like how he normally would when the windmill spins, instead of saying Tubby Custard tap. And then after that, instead of the Magic House, which I think should have been in this episode, I had the Follow the Leader dance. Although the reason why it has this dance is because the light in the back of the noo-noo is pink. I think this should have had the Magic House, because obviously the Magic House is pink. Like, don't you think this episode should have had it? Anyway. But it has no opening shots, and the camera just cuts Tubby bye-bye without the Teletubbies bottom noises heard. So, yeah. Now, the old 2000s Teletubbies website, Poe was chosen for TV instead of Lala. So, yeah. Dipsy's missing Teletubby and Tinky Winky's the boo shouter. Next up is Catholic Dancing. This episode I do remember seeing. It has a scene from the Teletubbies. It still has the opening scene where Teletubbies were meeting up in the field and bump each other and then fall over. Tinky Winky shows for TV event where 5 girls dance a Catholic dance. Now, for those that don't know what a Catholic dance is, it's a dance that they do in India. It still has, after that, I mean, that's a dance from India, I should say. So, yeah. Anyway, it still has the opening scene after that where the Teletubbies swap their favorite things, but it has different dialogue from Ralph Saxon, unlike in What's That, which I don't know why, because this is the only segment that ever appear in a Teletubbies Everywhere Home video where Ralph Saxon re-recorded his dialogue. So yeah, it starts with the opening shot from the UK version of Tropical Fish from the second scene instead of the alternate Right Path 2 opening shot. And after that, it has the bumping dance extended version. Once again, the same version from Feeding Sheep in the Winter, where it has the same baby song clip at the end. And the set Boo Shouter, which was Poe. So yeah, and Dipsy's Missing Teletubbies. Like I said, Dipsy's Missing Teletubbies, Poe's the Boo Shouter. Now we get to numbers 5. This is another interest. This one is the same as its third UK version, but with 2 major differences. So it still has the opening scene where Tinky Winky listens to a voice trap counting to 5, but much like in the US version of numbers 3, we don't hear the Teletubbies saying "uh-oh" at all until except in the theme song. So yeah, but it has 2 different two different voices coming out of the voice trumpet compared to that episode of the UK version of numbers 5 version 3. Dipsy gets the TV event instead of Tinky Winky, and that's because his name is spelled with 5 letters. And the TV event, there's no fire trucks nor earth diggers. Or earth movers, I think, whatever they call it, so yeah. And then after that, it has the rabbit song from Paddling Pool, but it starts with the 4th shot, and the music that starts from that shot plays a little earlier. And then it fades to, and it ends with the camera fading to the opening shot for the next scene, which is still the scene where the Teletubbies listen to 5 voice trumpets play a musical instrument to make a song. But it has the alternate Right Path 2 shot instead of Home Hill 1. And then it has the second short version of the jumping dance on the path. The same version from Tulips, where it has the same clip of Baby Son screaming excitement at the end. And that's because it's a reference to the nursery rhyme 5 Little Monkeys. Lyle's Missing Teletubby and Tinky Winky's the Boo Shouter. Next up is Sand Sailing. This is the US version of Land Yachting. I do remember seeing this episode as well. It still has the opening scene where Dipsy jumps into the house, and Lila gets shows her TV event where this girl goes land yachting with her dad on a beach. And then after that, it still has the main scene where Tinky Winky, with Teletubbies' favorite things, get blown away by a wind. But the scene has the baby son giggling instead of shrieking. And then after that, it has the Round and Round dance extended version, the same version from the US version of Eats New Clothes and Throwing as well, where it has the same clip of baby son giggling at the end. So yeah. The reason why it has the dance is because people ride their land yachts around in circles. So yeah. And this is, by the way, is the US version of Land Yachting, if I haven't said so. Post Missing Teletubby and Dipsy's the Boo Shouter. Now we get to Handshapes Turkey. This is another interesting one. It still has the opening scene where Tinky Winky spills his bowl of tubby custard on the floor, and that's because when you think of Thanksgiving, where people have turkey for dinner, they sometimes have custard or pudding as a side dish or dessert. Poe gets the TV instead of Lala. Isn't that much like what happened in the US version of numbers 5, where Dipsy was chosen instead of Tinky Winky? Here, Poe gets chosen instead of Lala. It's where this girl paints the shape of her turkey with her hands, so she traces a turkey. I thought it's a pretty interesting TV bet. And very relaxing as well. And then it still has the main scene where Lala Poe listens to a voice trumpet saying wobble gobble, but here the voice trumpet says gobble wobble. And I really like the way Rolf Saxon says, "What a funny joke!" Maybe then it sounded like he thought it was funny too. Anyway, but it has a female voice trumpet instead of a British one. It still has the animal parade after that, and for the first time in this US series, there's no elephant trumpet noise, which also happened in the UK version. And the reason is because it makes you think of the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade, which is held every Thanksgiving morning. Every morning in Thanksgiving. On Thanksgiving Day. And then instead of the stamping and stepping dance, they do the extended version of the Calypso dance, same version from the US version of Pebbles, where the dance starts with no opening shots. And the baby son smiles at the end as well. So yeah. Lyle's Both the Missing Teletubby and the Boo Shouter. Last but not least, Stop and Go. This episode was bugging people until it got uploaded a couple weeks ago. It still has the opening scene where the Teletubbies play a round and round game with a voice trumpet out in the field that says Stop and Go. But it has a female voice trumpet instead of a British one, a female American voice trumpet instead of a female British one. It still keeps that rare windmill clip where it shows it starts spinning instead of in the spot in the position where it usually stops spinning. Lala gets shows for TV event where they split kids play a game of stop and go in a city, and then it still has the main, and then the baby song giggles instead of doing her crescendo or giggle crescendo scream, and then it still has the main scene where the Teletubbies play a Ready Steady Go game, and then after that it still has the regular version of the Twisty dance because the Teletubbies sometimes stop during the dance. It's the same version from My Dad's a Tram Driver because it has the same audio of the baby song screaming in excitement and beginning, and the same music as well, along with as well as the dance beginning by showing the other Teletubbies outside dancing instead of showing Poe arriving late or showing Poe inside the house. But it's the original audio of the Teletubbies dancing from the Twisty dance, and it ends the same way as the U.S. version of Funny Walks, where after it shows the close-up of Tinky Winky cheering, it cuts to the baby son doing her crescendo scream. So yeah. Tinky Winky is missing Teletubby and Poe's the boo shutter, which makes sense because Poe is red, and red means stop at a traffic light. So yeah. Well, thank you all for watching, and I'll do Season 4 whenever we find the remaining episodes from that season that we're still missing at recording time. So yeah. So thank you all for watching, and have a great and happy 4th of July, everybody.